Today's our first look at the new Skoda Octavia, so we're going to run through some of the different features, some of what's new with this car, give you a good look through all the details of it, and then we're going to go for a short drive and give you a quick idea of what this car is like. Now I'll start off at the front of the Octavia, and if you're in any way familiar with the recently updated Superb, you'll see some of the family resemblances coming through, in particular when you look at the lower section around this lower section of the bumper and the shape of these LED fog lights. There's also a chrome strip on this style version that runs all the way across, connecting the two. And if you look a little bit closer, you can see that there's actually an air channel that runs through here, channels air around past the front wheel, adding to the aerodynamics. Now the LED headlights are also a new feature and really stand out with this new, more angular looking daytime running light signature, and that ties in quite nicely with how the front grille has been shaped. It's a little bit wider than before. It's a little bit shallower, and as you can see, they've actually put some of the sensor arrays in the front here. Now in the lower section, you can actually, when you peer through, you'll see that there's actually an active shutter that opens and closes, and that will help get the engine up to temperature when it starts, but it also helps improve aerodynamics and reduce fuel consumption on motorway speeds. However, this top grille always remains open. Now while this style model is far from the range topper, it does still come with these quite smart looking 18-inch alloy wheels. You can have an Octavia on anything from 17 to 19-inch wheels depending on the model that you choose, but what Skoda has done is that they've upped the tyre sizes across the board. So all of the tyre sizes, irrespective of the wheel size you choose, now gets an extra 20mm of sidewall. And what that does is it's twofold. It actually increases the amount of comfort that you get, but Skoda says that it can reduce CO2 emissions by as much as 3 grams per kilometre. Now on this style model, the window trim is a chrome finish, but other models will also offer a gloss black finish. Particularly this happens on the RS and is probably going to happen on the expected Sportline model too. When you look at the Octavia side on is where you see that it's really moved away from that traditional 3-box saloon. Yes, I'd still call it a saloon, but as you can see from the rear, it has a much sloped, more of almost a hatchback look to it. Now that's pretty good because you still have tons of rear passenger space and you have a colossal boot. Some of the other styling points from the rear of the Octavia are these new crystalline LED taillights. Now they do look pretty smart. They come right out to the edge of the car, as you can see, and that really, when you see it at night from behind, it adds a real sense of width to the car. And if you look here, you can see there's these two other small panels inside, very much like the Superb, except that actually gets 3 inserts inside. So you can see the family resemblance carrying through. You still get an Octavia badge, and as we've seen now on pretty much all the current Skoda lineup, the logo is gone from the boot, and instead you have the Skoda name spelt out all the way across. As I said, this is the style model, so it doesn't get quite the same rear diffuser, rear bumper treatment, and as you can see, there's no exhaust pipes visible on this. But the upside is that they haven't tried to put in any fake chrome exhaust on it either. Now the boot is, in this model, powered, so it's quite useful for getting everything in and out, and you can open it with the key remote too. And there is a huge boot, and that's like, it is a bit of a trademark of Skoda, but they've done wonders here. It's a massive boot. You've got this hatchback opening, so it's very easy to get huge, big, bulky items like a bike or a buggy or a pram into. So it's great in that respect. And there's also some useful features inside. So you have these extra storage areas on either side. They're actually much deeper than what we've seen on previous models. You have a 12-volt power socket in the rear, so if you're going to put, say, like a cooler box or something that you want to keep going, you can plug in there. There are some bag hooks on either side which are very useful, and even some extra things to tie onto. And a very useful feature is it's got the seat quick release buttons here, so these are on either side. If you need to lower the rear seats down, you can do that. There's also a spare wheel in this car, which is a bit of a novelty these days because so many cars, in a bit to reduce weight and save emissions, neglect to put a spare wheel. I can't say that every model is going to come with a spare wheel, but this one does. It's actually worth mentioning that there's a new key for the Octavia as well. It's quite nice. It's Much more modern design. It's got this glossy sheen to it. Looks really smart. It still has a blade key inside, which you can open here and take out, but otherwise very, very smart looking thing. And you don't actually touch the buttons, it's all just one panel. And if you press down and hold the boot key, it will open up like so all the way. And you can also then close it by simply holding down the boot key again. Gives you an audible warning, and it will start to close the boot again by itself. Rear space in the Octavia is pretty good, I have to say. You get quite a lot of legroom. Now, that driver's seat is set up for my driving position. I'm about 5'9", and I sit a little bit closer to the steering wheel, but as you can see, there is tons of legroom there. Now, there is a transmission tunnel because the Octavia does come in all-wheel drive versions. It's relatively narrow, but it is quite high, as you can see. So the person sitting in the middle won't have the most comfortable experience, but it's not too bad. And you do have separate climate controls back here, as well as in this version, a 230 volt socket and 2 USB-C buttons. And there's also some new style seat backs, so it's quite easy to pop in like a mobile phone or a device in there if you want to leave it. And then you also have 2 ISOFIX points here as well, so very easy to access. And then for the middle seat, if you're not using it, there is also a fold down armrest and access into the boot. Arguably the biggest improvement in the whole Octavia revamp is the interior. So let's go through and show you some of what's new inside Skoda's midsize saloon. As I get in, before I pull the door closed, I'll just show you a bit of a better view here. You do have a release here on inside the driver's door to open the boot. You have a Canton upgraded stereo speakers in this car, and there's also all of this door bin is lined. Quite a nice plastic design. This is all plastic. This is a leather material up here, and then you have some more plastic up on top where it meets the door handle. But I have to say, from a quality perspective, it's all quite nice. And this chrome trim panel that runs up and then actually runs into the door it's a really nice touch actually. It just sits out, it leaves you enough room to just slide your fingers in and open the door. Now, the Octavia gets a fully digitized instrument display, and I'll just start up the engine so you can see. It's a 10.25 inch unit, very, very easy to see, and there's a couple of different configurations as well. You do get just normal readouts on either side. So this is the engine temperature, and then you have the fuel on the other side. So it's quite easy, and then you have a number of different views that you can then toggle through. But first of all, I want to show you the new steering wheel, which is quite unusual in that it doesn't have a third spoke. Now they will do, the RS model gets a more traditional looking 3-spoke wheel, but this is basically this is standard wheel that we will get on the Octavias, and I think it looks really cool with this kind of bit missing. It's very much like the old Mercedes S-Class, or the Maybach has the same setup. It's kind of cool. It's a bit weird the first time you get in. The multifunction controls are also new, and the whole look of the aesthetic of the wheel is, I think, really, really nice. And given that this is the one thing you're going to be touching all the time and holding onto, it's good that the quality of this is very, very nice. It's a decent size. It's for me, I think it's just the right size. It's not too thick, and just the quality of it seems spot on. Now, one of the interesting features are these new kind of rotary dials. If you press that in, it selects the screen on the right. So you have these 2 arrows, and then you can scroll through the different functions. And if you press it in one more time, it goes to this side, and you can scroll through your driving data. So you've got your volume control here. You've got smaller buttons here. You've got heated steering wheel. This is the button for activating the voice control or the voice assist system. You can also just do that by speaking Laura's name. You then have other skip functions here, physical buttons for your headlights and your fog lights, and there's even there's a small little change pocket. There's also then this new infotainment system. It's not only got a much nicer screen, it's got a whole new operating menu. It's really nice to use, actually. I have to say, I've been playing around with it today, and it works actually very well. So far, so good. It's quite a big screen. It doesn't have a gloss finish, but it's also not quite a satin finish. It's kind of in between, so you're not going to have it absolutely covered in fingerprints. I think it should actually work quite well in that respect. There's also this touch bar along the bottom, so you've got a plus and a minus, or sorry, minus and a plus here, so you can tap those, or you can just use the whole thing as touch sensitive. So as you can see, you can scroll up or turn up or turn down your music just by touching that bar. There is a slightly reduced button count now because Skoda has taken some of the control functions for things like heated seats and the temperature control and put it into the screen display itself. Now, yes, we've been critical of manufacturers for doing this in the past, particularly the likes of Citroen, that you had to go through a couple of menus to get to your fan speed to adjust your temperature. But irrespective of what you do in the menu function or in the menu screens, so these are always on show on the bottom of the screen. So it's very easy. You can just very quickly do that. You don't have to go looking for them. Same with your heated seats. And you've still got a time here. Now there is actually some buttons still. You have a couple of car function controls. So for the parking assist, for the different drive modes, your hazard lights, central locking button, and your front and rear window demisters as well. And then obviously you've got your air vents underneath. Just to go back to the climate control for a moment, if you press the climate button here, it does actually still bring up a more detailed stuff. So there's a smart AC system now in that Skoda use. It basically just goes through a bit more detail. If you want to warm your feet, warm your hands, cool your feet, get some fresh air, front or for the rear, so you can adjust all of this through the infotainment screen. There is oddly then still a classic AC menu, which is effectively what you're used to seeing. So you've got, you know, where you want your direction of the air to blow, the fan speed, whether you want to recirculate air or have the AC on, all that kind of stuff is there. So it's kind of odd, you have two different menus for that, but still, it's all still quite useful. The main thing I think that I like is that you can still very quickly just touch these irrespective of what's on the main screen. Now further down, this car is also equipped with a wireless charging pad. There's also two USB-C ports here. There are no USB-A ports in this car anymore. Skoda has kind of just made the decision to switch over. Because this car also has the wireless charging pad, there isn't a 12-volt socket in the car. I actually did have to do a double take, but I had to look and it's like, no, there isn't a 12-volt socket. You've got two cup holders there, electric handbrake hold, a small cubby area in there, and the gear selector, which I'll touch on now. So they've shifted from the DSG, it still has a DSG automatic transmission, but Skoda has moved to this shift by wire function. So you no longer have a lever as such. You now have this much neater, much smaller, I guess it's just like a toggle really. So you literally just foot on your brake, you just pull it down, it'll go into sport. Your park button is there. You can feel it kind of, you know, the electronics moving underneath. So when you do put it in, and then you've got neutral and you've got reverse there. So look, it's fine. I actually quite like that. I think it's quite neat. It's easy to use. The main reason is that, as you can see, it frees up a lot of space in there. And it also means that if you just want to throw your phone in and charge it, you're not putting it around the lever, you're just putting it straight in. Some people won't like this. I think it works great, and the big thing is that it just frees up so much space there. You can still shift manually, so it does. Skoda does still add paddles to the back of the steering wheel, so if you do want to go up and down the gears yourself, you can. I touched on driving modes. There is just pretty standard settings on this. You have eco, normal, sport, and an individual mode where you can go through and set up various different, if you want to have your own sort of bespoke preference, you can do that. There'll be on the more powerful models like the RS, that drive mode will obviously do a few more things. You've got this really nice sort of contrasting silver metallic, kind of metallic looking panel here, and you also have this is an Alcantara material, and the stitching on it is quite nice. It runs all the way through, right behind here, and even on the side as well. Now this probably won't come as a huge shock to you, but the latest Octavia is a better car than the predecessor. Now the last car was also a very good car, and it sold in very respectable numbers. And really what Skoda has done with this Octavia is just done some tweaks. It's improved it. It already knew it had a very successful recipe, a winning formula as it were, and all the company has done is just added some slight tweaks, some slight updates across the board. Now the engines have also come in for a bit of a tweaking, and there is quite a wide variety of engines available for the Octavia. Now you can have a 1 litre petrol engine, you can have a 1.5 litre petrol engine. These will also be available with e-tech or mild hybrid systems. There will even be a plug-in hybrid model, and that could be quite a successful seller based on its decent battery range and the obvious low CO2 emissions that plug-in hybrids bring. But a lot of Octavia buyers are going to stick with diesel engines, and this particular one is the 2 litre diesel TDI Evo. Now the 2 litre TDI has been a stalwart of the Octavia and the Superb range for quite a while, and the Evo engines just basically takes that, adds a little bit more refinement to it. They've changed a lot of the internals. That's made the engine smoother, it runs more efficiently, the fuel economy has improved, the emissions have come down. There's things like twin dosing now for the exhaust system, so it's better, it releases less NOx, particularly at higher speeds. And it's also coupled with a DSG gearbox. So this is a dual clutch automatic transmission that Skoda and indeed the Volkswagen Group have used across the board for quite some time, and it's very nice actually, I have to say. Now you can have your choice of 2 litre TDI engines. This is the 150 horsepower version, and I think it's the one to have actually, because it's got plenty of torque, plenty of power, but it still does pretty well in the fuel economy stakes. It's got the legs on a motorway, the engine isn't struggling. If perhaps you're a taxi driver and you're going to always have people in the car, it's not going to struggle with a bit more weight in it. It just hits the sweet spot, and especially when you pair it up with the dual clutch automatic transmission, that works really well, has done for years. If you're driving a lot particularly in start-stop traffic, why would you want to be shifting gears yourself? This is absolutely the one to have. I love the fact that there's now much more room in the cabin because of it, because there's no traditional lever. It just works great, and when you double it up with the travel assist, works very, very well. Now I wouldn't quite call this a driver's car in this guise. If you want an Octavia with a bit more excitement, there is an RS model coming, but for the most part this does the job extremely well. It's fine for doing motorway schlep if you just want to cover huge distance. You can put it into sport mode, and that tightens up the steering, improves the gearbox response a little bit more. You can have a little bit of fun with it, even in this slightly, what some people might deem a boring 2 litre TDI guys. It's a car that you can tell has a good chassis underneath it. You can still push this on a little bit, and even on these slightly battered roads here, there's no issue in terms of it holding its line. When you apply a bit more throttle, the engine picks up quickly, and you have that huge surge of torque. Well, as initial impressions go, this Octavia seems to be a great car made that bit better again. So do have a look at all the engine options that are out there, find the one that's right for you, and also look at the huge array of different spec and equipment options that are there. Anyway, this has been our first drive in the Octavia. Hope you've enjoyed it. Please do remember to subscribe to the Complete Car YouTube channel, give the video a thumbs up if you found it helpful, and always click that notification bell. That means that you'll get a ping next time we upload one of our video reviews. If you want to find out more, you can also head over to completecar.ie, where we'll have a full rundown of the new Octavia, pricing, specs, details, reviews of all of its rivals as well.